Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I am a voice teacher. Today I will be reacting to and analyzing Pearl Jam performing Even Flow live on MTV Unplugged in 1992. Now, from our friends Pearl Jam. Eddie has this amazing rasp on his voice. That's an F sharp, so he's kind of encouraging a pulled chest sound. If he dropped his jaw a little bit, he probably wouldn't be able to get that rasp as well, so he kind of needs that extra tension to get the raspiness in the way that he's making it right now. That said, I do think that there is a little bit that's not just on the chord, that's not just pulled chest, but that's more of a filter of raspiness on top of the sound that he's making. But you can get it clear. It just feels like he's kind of pushing into it a little bit. I don't know exactly how to do it, and we have totally different instruments, so I'm not going to be able to completely approximate it. But if he was going for more of a not even good, healthy is not the right word, because I think that this is fine. Traditionally taught way of saying that, maybe drop the jaw a little bit, and then see if there is any tension with it, and if you can make that sound without the tension. But I think it's awesome. Right there, see, that's where he drops the jaw, and we get the same sort of clear tone that I was just talking about on the he instead of the e. So I think he could have gotten a very similar sound right before. I do think that part of the way that he's getting that clear tone is just dropping the jaw. It's very, very clear. Gosh, he has such a cool voice. See, same thing, he just doesn't lean into that rasp as much. He's got this beautiful instrument, and he's capable of producing so many different colors, including really raspy, gritty sounds, and beautiful, angelic, little, yummy things. And we just saw him go between all of them, even on the hum that he did that was a little bit raspy. And he didn't like crunch up his face at all. It didn't look like he was flexing or pushing to make that sound. It was just like, oh yeah, I know how to make the sound, and it takes just as much energy as me saying hello to you. And it's not like a pushed, forced sound for him when he's creating these sounds that to our ears kind of sound pushed and forced sometimes. So I think it's pretty important to start learning the difference between healthy rasp and unhealthy rasp. Are we getting the rasp just because we're wrecking our voice and drinking and smoking and, causing all of these physical imperfections? Because that's a way of doing it, that a lot of people do that. Or are we making a sound in a way that is just like any other sound that we have in our toolbox, that won't reduce all of our vocal capital like crazy, that will feel good after a long set? And I'm not completely sure if he's lost his voice from his vocal technique before, but from what I'm seeing, it sounds like he has enough control and enough self-awareness, and he's had like a 30-year career singing this stuff, and from what I've heard, like, he still sounds great. That's proof that what he's doing is working, that his technique, whatever he would define as technique, is working. It sounds so cool. So he chases them away, yeah. Someday, yeah, he'll begin his life again. I love his eyes. They just look so intense. It's like staring daggers into whatever he's looking at. And I talk a lot about opening your eyes when you're singing. Just in my last few videos, I've said it a lot because I've been doing quite a few pop singers who tend to close their eyes while they're singing the most intense or most emotional parts of the song. And I feel like it just cuts off this window of emotion. And I'm sure that they're feeling things really intensely inside. But then look at Eddie. Look at what he just did. Like, it is so intense that it kind of makes you pause and wonder, like, wow, are you okay, man? And I love that. Like, I want to be part of whatever performer I'm watching. I want to feel like I'm being welcomed into that. And that's where the vulnerability comes in, where, like, I don't think it's vulnerable to just have your eyes closed and, like, whatever. I think this is extraordinarily vulnerable, showing that kind of emotion for everyone to see. Plus, just like, his voice is unbelievable. And he's getting this gritty sound that, like, really does sound like if you just completely wrecked your voice. But I don't think that he's wrecking his voice, because he has such facility moving in between that sound and those beautiful high, like, oohs that are kind of hootier and clear. And there's not any sign of, like, oh, that hurt right after he comes out of the gritty parts. It just is like, yeah, this is my voice. And maybe he's just really good at hiding that. But again, 30-year career. That time his teeth were almost completely closed. So in his clarity, in the clear sounds that he's making, I do think that he can continue taking that up. Do I think he'll be able to take that up to a high C with the exact way that he's doing? Maybe it's a little too heavy, but he'll probably be able to take it up at least a third. And in my opinion, like, if you're able to keep going for at least a third up, you're probably in a good shape. And he probably has some techniques to be able to, like, start thinning that out as he goes toward really, really high notes. But I don't know. Does he ever sing, like, really, really freaking high, like B and above? I don't know. Pearl Jam people who have listened to him a lot more than me, please let me know in the comments. On the way, you kind of see as to get that sound, it becomes a little bit more of a back sound rather than this forward sound. So a lot of people use these terms, forward and back, and for people who don't sing, they usually don't really make much sense. But if you're saying, you're like, you'll probably feel it really forward in your face. If you go to a ooh, you'll probably feel it more back in your head. Sometimes this is actually a false kinesthesia, where if we do this sound and it's like really far back, a lot of people perceive that as your throat being very open. But that's not really true. A lot of times for that to happen, your tongue has to kind of pull back, which takes up all of the space in your throat. And it actually creates this convergence in your throat where it's not very open at all, which, like, across pretty much all styles of vocal pedagogy, that's one of the aims, is to sing with a relaxed open throat. Because when we've done studies of really, really good singers, regardless of their technique, there usually is that open throat, just from observation. So then the question becomes just, how do we teach that open throat? And a lot of people go toward, oh, well, this feels open, let's go with that. It's not true. You can kind of test it yourself by making that sound, going like this, making a very hooty sound and kind of retracting your tongue, and then just blow air over it. And feel where it cools in your mouth. For me, it's very far back. It cools where it's most narrow. Now do a very high E, like, and feel where that cools. For me, it's forward, and it's like at the roof of my mouth. It's not at the back, and that shows that you have an open throat. And so remapping what openness feels like, I think, is really cool. Anyway, he kind of closes down his throat with that by pulling his tongue back just to get that tone. But it was interesting on the growly part right before he did that, I saw his tongue just have a nice forward position. It wasn't like E. And that's what's so beautiful about an E vowel, is it generally brings the tongue a little bit more forward, which I think is just good for most singing, to have like that forward presence across all genres. while he may not be punching it with air pressure, and he might be a little bit, I think there's a little bit of extra stuff because you can't get like these intense sounds without some energy. And where that energy comes from, it's mostly from your soul, it's from your spirit, your person, and just having that energy needs to be present in order to create these intense sounds to some degree. But it's pretty cool that he's staying engaged this whole time. He's keeping that energy up, and that it's not building into something that's unsustainable. Because one risk when you make like heavy sounds like this is that you start thinking that the song needs to build, because it does. Songs need to go somewhere, and then you start getting louder and you push harder, and then by the end of the song there's so much stacked tension that you can't like open your mouth to do anything. That's where we take these other clues of, well, he then goes into like his really spoken kind of pattery bits, and then he goes into some more clear sounds, and he does the high falsetto that's really calming, and he's able to go between all of those. So I don't think that he's getting that really stacked tension effect. There's a little bit of tension, yeah, but that's fine. It's how you manage these things. You can do anything as long as it is sustainable and lets you do a full song. I liked that little thing he did just with his staging, how as soon as it was the solo time for guitar, he turned his back completely to the audience, which is like, I'm not the star anymore, look over here. And it's just that visual cue makes us focus on something else. I think that's a cool little thing. I mean, obviously he's not going to be singing, and we'll generally go over that, and the camera's panning over there, and all of that is true. But just turning your back to something, it's like, don't look at me for a second. And most people instinctually will say, okay, I won't look at you for a second. That little screamy thing that he did leading up to it, that was fun. It's like, hey guys, I'm back, and here's this cool little screamy thing, and you can bring back that attention to me. But he was kind of off mic with it, so it sounded like he's in a cave almost. I don't know. Using mics like that, the proximity to your mouth and good mic technique, you can get a lot of different colors just by playing around with how close you hold your mic. It's cool. I wish I could make those sounds. So his jaw's kind of active, but it doesn't look like it's really tense. It's moving a little bit. It's not locked into a position, but if I'm seeing any tension, it's like from pushing just a little too much. But again, like I've said, that's what we need to make those sounds. And a little tension is okay. I think it's easy for people to start thinking all singing needs to have zero tension and blah, blah, blah. And it's just not true. It's just, how do we manage it? And is it wrecking the way that we're making these sounds? And are we sustaining it over a career? Not just over one night, although that matters too, but are you able to do a whole tour with that? But there is some tension inherent in singing and inherent in different styles of singing. Like with opera, yeah, we want to have very, very little tension, because if we create that condition, it helps with amplification, with self-amplification. It helps with tuning to the singer's formant so that we can be heard over orchestras. With Broadway, with jazz, there's a lot of straight tone. With a lot of music, right? There's a lot of straight tone where they don't use as much vibrato. Inherent in straight tone is some tension. It's not like a ton of tension all the time, but there is some tension. And then we release it and get the vibrato, if you're able to get the vibrato. That's why kind of vibrato just comes out a lot of the times when people get a nice balance technique that doesn't have very much tension, and it's not something that I really like working on. Okay, we're going to work on vibrato now. It's like you can kind of trick it out sometimes, but that I think is a further down the line of vocal development thing. So that's just like my issue with the word tension and strain, is that yes, they're worth looking at and making sure that you're not locking up, but if you're able to sing through it, like, that's a balanced coordination still. And you can have a little bit of tension. You can have the rope be a little taut and still have it be balanced. And I think that's what he's figured out, is like, yeah, I'm choosing to have a little bit of tension or a little bit of constriction in this one area that's creating this rattling sound. But the rest of me is so relaxed and comfortable with what I'm doing that I can do it all day. That's kind of what I think is happening. He could be blowing his voice out. You never really know, and you'd have to ask him. But that's one of the things that's so hard about learning how to sing and about voice in general, is most of the time we only have our ears. We're not able to see what's happening inside his throat while he's singing every time he's singing. We're not able to monitor that as closely, and we're not able to control it in the way that we might be able to control a piano, where we can just tell a 3-year-old, okay, put your hand on C. You can't tell a 3-year-old to like put their vocal folds in the C position. Like, it doesn't make sense. We go off of these other cues to learn this skill, and it's all feeling, like sensation, and also feeling of like emotion. It's hard because like maybe he's blowing his voice out and he's just really good at hiding it. I don't think that's true, but it could be. Plus, I just love it. His lips are fairly relaxed. And some of it, I don't remember what the words are, obviously. Some of it is like that style of grunge where articulation isn't very important, and understanding the words might not always be the most important thing. But I do think that there is a lot of value in minimal movement, in just finding a coordination that works well, that is balanced, and then not really moving away from it. And like, he's moving his mouth very big when he goes to those high notes, and we adds that grit. But when he's just like flowing, there's not very much movement, which is a thing that I think all styles of music can kind of take from, is find what works well for you and then see how little you can move in order to get to the next vowel or the next pitch. I don't think it hurts. Like that kind of sound, he's way better at it, obviously. But like, that doesn't hurt. I only started figuring out how to make any sort of sound like that by imitating Jordan Peele in Big Mouth as Duke Ellington. I can't imitate Duke Ellington. I have to imitate Jordan Peele in Big Mouth as Duke Ellington. And then it kind of gets to this sound. And it doesn't hurt. It doesn't. I think that's what he's doing. I don't think it hurts. The intensity is because he's a great performer, not because he's pushing his guts out. I obviously really like Pearl Jam and really like Eddie Vedder, and I don't think this video needs a too long don't watch, so just go watch the whole thing. And yes, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm right, tell me how you go to sleep at night. Bye. This is not Anthony Fantano, and I can't rhyme at the end of my things. Bye. Thanks.